Ready? We haven't even hit live yet. Okay, we're live now. We're live now. Okay, folks, I'm just going to do, not really much of an introduction needs to take place if you folks that regularly watch my videos or my streams, because I've talked to Mitchell in the past, but we're going to have another follow-up discussion today. This one, obviously, if you've been paying attention to the post I put out, and even Mitchell himself, is basically about collective punishment. In particular, one of the things I wanted to cover was Maxime Bernier's petition to ban Antifa. But hey, what the hell? When you're talking about collective punishment, the gun ban is another one of those, as far as I'm concerned, idiotic ideas. But hey, let's just go with it. But obviously, as most of you people realize, I'm not a fan of collective punishment in any way, shape, or form, because once again, it's basically another means to remove the individual or individual actors. And once again, I don't believe in any kind of blanket statement towards anyone, right? Anyways, but like I say, I'm going to make sure that this video is going to get monetized and it's get shared to the rest of my platforms. But in the meantime, Mitchell, just go ahead and say whatever you got to say there, man. Introduce yourself, or just start off what your thoughts are initially.
Okay. Anyone that didn't watch the last video I was on, my name is Mitchell. I'm part of the People's Party of Canada. I'm the provincial coordinator for Nova Scotia and PEI, but we're not going to talk really so much about that today, obviously. Just my view. I guess I have more of a personal dealing with Antifa. I did receive emails and stuff like that during the federal election, the last one. I'm usually not for banning things. Like, I'm not for banning like free speech or any censoring of those sort of things. But I think when an organization or a group of people conflict with what our values are in this country and are violent, I think they should be labeled as a terrorist organization or a group, and I think they should be banned.
Okay, I'm just going to, like I say, I'm going to respond there just one sec, Mitchell. I just want to make sure that I get this all sorted out here, because I have to go in after the fact. YouTube constantly messing with me here. Okay, inappropriate language. Yeah, there's probably going to be some light profanity. Are we dealing with sensitive issues? Yeah, I'm serious. There's so many things. There's that. Then is there adult content, so sexual related stuff, violent situations showing hurt, damage, or injury. Okay, we're not going to be doing that. There's not going to be showing anything. Harmful or dangerous acts, situations that may endanger participants. No, we're not going to be doing any of that stuff. Drug related. No. Hateful content. No. Firearms related. Discussion. Showing or discussion of real or fake guns. See, that's definitely going to, you know what? I'm not even going to try to monetize this fucking video then, because yeah, I'm not going to meet the requirements. So actually forget it. This is going to be, I guess, another freebie. I guess that's how YouTube fucks me over, so that I can't make a dime. They know I'm going to cover this stuff regardless, but I guess, well, at least I won't get paid for it. So, well, back to the drawing board. But anyways, what
that's ridiculous.
It is, right? And I mean, that's the part that drives me nuts, because think about it. I've never known of any business. First of all, the rules change all the fucking time. Like, since I've monetized my channel the last couple of years, the rules have changed so many times. Now I had to go initially, and now you have to click. Well, this was about 6 months ago when they started this, where you have to say if you deal with any content related to children. Now, that was easy for me, because I literally don't deal with any topics that deal with children. So yeah, that part was easy. So now all my videos are at least marked for what I think says 13 and above. So I don't have to worry about any of that stuff, at least. But yes, now with all this crap, and I don't know if you watched that video that or the stream, subsequent streams that I've done with Susan Wojcicki there, the CEO of YouTube. But she basically came out and said, yeah, they're just going by WHO talking points. And if you don't repeat exactly what their talking points are, you're going to be demonetized. And then even with the COVID, because you can pick from that if you're dealing with the COVID. But then it says is, the other aspect of it is anything that's, I forget the exact wording, but basically anything controversial, if they want to go in and manually review it. I mean, if put it this way, because it's so loose, the language, if I was a moderator at YouTube, I could basically just pick and choose selectively whoever I want to demonetize, because that's how loose the wording is. And I can't imagine, right? I mean, what, these guys can't fucking afford high-paid lawyers, right? Come on. You couldn't have that properly articulated to give to err on the side of the creators that produce all this wealth for YouTube. no, of course they make it so that, like I say, they can actively and selectively enforce the rules. So, you know, if you are like say someone like Antifa and wants to upload a video promoting violence, right? Oh no, we'll let that slide because they're oppressed by whatever, right? But if I want to deal with even just talking about what they have suggested, well, because I'm a libertarian and I'm not going to toe the party line or the political ideological line, well, I can't be having Bennett get his channel monetized, nor can we have it being spread around. I mean, just the fact that my views and my videos now are basically down into like single 100, 200 views basically now, is I know how actively suppressed it is, but I'm not worried about it now because, like I say, time marches on. You know, people got to catch up to this stuff later or in a year or two when maybe there is some freedom of speech that might take place. Because, you know, Trump, and I'm definitely behind, as much as I'm not a fan or advocate of government imposing their will. One thing I am backing Trump is this executive order where they're making sure that the federal departments that deal with communications in that Section 230, that they are going to clarify the language, because I'm not for removing Section 230 because there are certain situations and incidents where I think Section 230 is appropriate to protect platforms such as Gab or Mind. You know, there are social media platforms that definitely rightfully benefit from Section 230 because they allow genuine freedom of speech on their platform and they don't want to be held to account, you know, because of things that's uploaded to their platforms, which is a great idea. But because YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, some of these big companies now are actively seeking to editorialize or be the arbiter of truth, well then, I'm sorry, they shouldn't be able to get those kind of protections. If you want to put your political opinions, right, interject them into the platform, then no, you should be treated just like anyone else that, you know, suggests or promotes opinion or perspectives based on ideological grounds. What happened to you, Mitchell? We lost you. He's gone black. I can't see him. He went in the darkness. He's back. He saw the light again. Just kidding.
Yeah, I've lost. Can you still hear me? I've lost audio.
Oh, you lost audio? Oh, really? Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
You can hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you.
1 second.
Okay.
Give me 1 sec.
Yep. No problem, buddy. No problem, buddy. I'm just going to see what's going on with the fine folks in the chat. Anyways, always nice to catch up the fine. Hey, Gato. What's going on, buddy? Gato in the chat first. Yes. Unfortunately, you don't get any prize. That's a bummer, I know. It's like, what? What's the point then, right? Second LOL. What's going on, Anna and Steve G? What do we got? Derek. Hey, what's going on, Derek? Oh, you're in Regina, Saskatchewan. Right on, Derek. Nice to see actually, I think I could see you all the way from Winnipeg. No, I'm just kidding. What else we got here? Hey, Tharky Thula. Hello, sir. Hello, fine sir. Ooh, the big evil one eye up there. Ooh. The all-knowing eye that's watching over us. Riots and looting is not legal. I agree, Derek. I agree. Riots and looting is definitely not legal. But anyways, let's see who else we got here. That's what's going on. Ron CYR, Jake Fillmore. Hey, Jake, what's going on? Good afternoon to you. I did see you in there, Mitchell. I don't know why. I was just getting caught up on the peeps in the stream there. But anyways, let Mitchell get his stuff figured out there. 1 sec, folks. 1 sec. Collective punishment calls names to everyone's in chat wrestling match. Their goal, order out of chaos. Yeah. Bingo. And another world is all I ever hear. I'm getting tired of sitting around enjoying a bottle of beer. Oh, man, that's a really old song from when I was a kid. Out of that is the NWO, the New World Order, as opposed to the old world order. There we go. He's back.
Yeah, sorry about that.
You didn't know Mitchell was a magician as well, right? He can appear and disappear anytime he wants. No, I'm just kidding. Multi-talented man, this guy.
I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, I couldn't hear anything out of my Bluetooth headset. I don't know why.
I don't know stuff. I know stuff. Oh, actually, I'm glad you brought that up because let me clarify some things. Yeah, I had a big time idiot moment where actually me and the wife were kind of doing the boomer joke about myself there. Okay, boomer, although I'm not a boomer. I'm actually a Gen Xer, but it was apt and it was appropriate for the time. But I was doing a stream. Let me just tell you this, Mitchell, and the folks in the chat here, because they probably, some of them that were there probably got a good laugh out of that one. Anyways, I was reading and referencing a National Post article in a stream I was doing, but you know how a lot of them now are embedding YouTube videos in, and it's right from their website. Now that would be fine and normal, and I'm quite used to that. But now they've actually started. So even after the video plays, well, first of all, if you go on the page, it automatically plays, which first of all, I'm not a big fan of that. Can you at least hold off until I hit play? That makes more sense to me. But anyways, forget that. But because it had already gone past, I don't know how long it had gone, because it had been sitting in the background of my screen, like on my browser for all this time. So it must have circled through lots of videos that was playing in the background. Anyways, when I went to reference it and I hit my screen share to show the screen, here's my son. He's got his own YouTube channel. He's a gamer. And here's my son's like, what the fuck? Right embedded into that National Post article. Here's my son. But because it pays attention to my past history and the things that I watch, right? So I guess as it kept circling through, subsequent videos, it finally must have got the one of my son that recommended it to me. And I'm like, wait a minute, because it's a National Post article dealing with like a serious topic. And here's my son playing a freaking, like, I think it's a horror video game. It's like, wait a minute. I was literally like, wait a minute, what the hell is this? Some kind of a friggin' like some kind of a bug in the system or whatever. But that's what it was after we thought about it afterwards. Is okay, that's what it was. The videos kept cycling, without me paying attention, and eventually, because YouTube's algorithm must have eventually cycled one of my sons into the mix. But yeah, what a weird thing that was to click on a National Post article and see your son in there. Like, what? But anyway,
made it big time.
Yeah. Actually, his channel actually, because the YouTube algorithm definitely it affected a lot of people, and he doesn't do anything political or anything like that, but it affected even people like into that kind of genre of game stuff when they started messing with algorithms and stuff. Because that's what it is, especially these younger people that were born and started getting into YouTube. They figured out like what the key things you do to get yourself relevant into and then they go and change the rules afterwards. Like, what the hell? Anyways, my son actually got, at one point, he was up to 140 some thousand subscribers on his channel. Like and he was fair. Yeah, he had like millions of views on some of his videos. Like, I mean, millions, like just one video, you know what I mean? So he was doing really well, but even his channel ended up being affected because of the changes up and everything. And I guess, anyways, forget about all that. But I thought that was pretty wild. That I'm sure some of the people in the chat were probably, if they were thinking about it at the time, it's like, Bennett, and trust me, it's no big deal. It's just basically what I suggested. It's just that it cycled through the videos. But anyway, so what you were saying, and in terms of the banning of the PPC, or I mean, not banning of the PPC, the ban of Antifa is okay. So first of all, I agree with you wholeheartedly. If an individual within these organizations, the problem is though, is, and I get it, just like liberals that claim to be liberals aren't exactly liberals, or conservatives that claim to be conservatives aren't exactly. But because, like I say, I don't allow anybody from the left or right or any thought leader or central planner to redefine terms and meanings to the words that we all use, is Antifa. And even if you look up, whether you just use a dictionary, because Antifa goes all the way back, even like before this modern iteration, like we're talking like back even to the 19th century, right? And 20th century. Or 20th century, I should say, of Antifa. But if you look up what it means, it's basically, and it would predominantly be a lot of people that do end up supporting communism, I guess, but also a lot of people who are just disenfranchised with right-wing collectivism too. So Antifa is people that are technically, according to what they describe their movement, is against fascism. And for me, I mean, I'm against fascism myself, big time against fascism. I'm against all forms of collectivism. So as much as I definitely recognize that some of these hacks in the Antifa movement use that pretense, that false pretense of, we're just against fascism, right? To actually go and smash whoever they disagree with, right? To punch a Nazi, even if that Nazi is an 80-year-old woman trying to cross the road in her fucking walker, right? Like, so I totally get that. But to me, it's like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel or pump up this kind of divisiveness. All you have to do is target the individuals. That's the beautiful thing about English common law going back hundreds of years. There's already plenty of laws on the books to deal with someone that's causing harm to property or person, right? Like that's if someone's caught doing damage to a store or a storefront or going inside and stealing a lot of their property or punching someone that they deem as a Nazi, it might be just someone that they disagree with. Well, that's already a violent act, and that's already punishable under our current laws. So I just don't quite get the point, other than, well, I mean, I get it if you want to just throw, like I say, political red meat to certain particular people, and we all know the kind of people that's going to be like, oh, I like it. Yeah, right. Let's go get some commies, right? Let's go get some goddamn commies, man. I totally get no, but I totally get that. But once again, this is why me as a libertarian, I have such a profound difficulty, not with people like you. That's why I love talking to individuals, right? I don't say Mitchell is the PBC. There, I disagree with this thing, so therefore Mitchell's. It's like, no, Mitchell is Mitchell. He's his own sovereign individual. So we're talking, but that is my problem, is when you start collectivizing guilt and punishment, and even the pretense of banning. Because even if he had just worded it, I think it would have been probably wiser if he had said that, they want to label them a terrorist organization, although I would still be in disagreement there. But I think it would be a lot less subtle than and weird even than trying to suggest we're just going to, oh, what the hell? Oh, my whole screen just went completely white, but I'm back.
Yeah, I can still hear you.
That was totally fucked up. Okay, there's some strange stuff. Anyways, don't even look at it. But that was weird. Whole white screen. At least it wasn't that blue screen of death. Do you ever have that happen where it's the sideways smiley face?
No.
And it goes, they call it the blue screen of death. Where
Never
like
had it.
Oh, you don't use Windows, do you?
Nope. All Apple products.
Well, that's why. Wise of you. Because no, that's a Windows thing where you get this. It's like a sideways smiley face, and then the screen goes completely blue. Other than that, and then it just shuts your computer down. Then you got to go through the whole, restart. And yeah, what a pain in the butt that is. But anyway, so that's kind of my, like I say, my initial thought is, the banning thing. Obviously, like, how do you ban? It's an ideology. It's stuff that people believe in their minds. Like, how the fuck do you do that? I even just under the utility, like how you actually go about banning ideas or ideologies. Like, how does that actually take place? I'd like to ask Maxime that. Not that you necessarily have an answer to this question, but if you want to try your hand at it, go for it, Mitchell.
Yeah, I'm not. I understand like the reason behind the petition and why it appeals to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how you would go about banning it. It's not like it's something that's coming into the country. They're already here. They're citizens of the country. But maybe somehow, I don't know, this kind of a thing would maybe ramp up the police force on them somehow. I mean, they rain terror for hours and hours, and the police just watch them harass people. Like there's got to be something done. Maybe that would be the start of more restrictions. I'm not too like it'd be hard to if there are people like coming across the border illegally, then obviously you could ban them from coming in. But I just don't like the idea. I don't like the idea of them destroying buildings and harassing like a lady going across the crosswalk and her husband. They're screaming, calling them Nazis, and her husband fought the Nazis in World War II. So I mean, the police right there should have done something to stop that from happening. I mean, there's no need of it. I mean, we're supposed to be. I understand like peaceful protest. If you want to stand there and chant, go ahead. That's your right. But don't be destroying businesses and breaking windows and lighting cars on fire and beating people up. It's absurd.
Yeah. Well, see, now to me, in terms of dealing with Antifa, actually, not that difficult of a problem or issue, to be perfectly honest with you, and how I would go about doing it, right? As a critical thinking adult is okay, just like with any person or group that tries to use bullying or intimidation tactics or violence towards people who are acting peacefully. As a libertarian, and this completely adheres to my principles, is like especially when it deals with violence towards other people. Oh, so they want to punch a Nazi. What I would say, and I would just make it publicly known, is okay. If you want to punch a Nazi, well, you go right ahead and do so. But Nazis get to punch back, right? Mm-hmm. Tit for tat. You want to punch? You like violence, do you? Violence is your answer to your questions. That's how you solve your problems. Okay. Well, you go ahead and do that. But I'm just saying, you go and punch that Nazi. I'm saying it's completely legal and justifiable for that Nazi to punch you back. And chances are, might hurt a whole lot worse, because I've seen some of those Nazi type figures, right? And they look like a little bit more strapping, rugged men in comparison to contrast to skinny jean wearing Antifa, right?
Yeah.
or the ladies that they like to put out in front of them to protect them. That's like, so to me, like, and just like with walking softly and the carrying of the big sticks approach is how I've gone through life. Is you don't need to actually use any government force. And as you basically acknowledge, I mean, I suppose the government thugs, right? They're basically an organized, fucking violent force of people who love using violence or threats thereof as a means to their end. So to them, I suppose, whether it's Antifa or not, it's like, well, I don't know. We're kind of like brothers. We just have different stripes.
Uniform.
Right, and we wear different uniforms, right? But but that's the thing. To me, yeah, obviously, I don't think some police may very well have an issue with Antifa based on their political preferences, but at the end of the day, it's not the police force that I think, and same with the property. So I dealt with the person. Like, if people want to use violence, preemptive violence, like I say, there's much more chance, because Antifa has been watching how this plays out, and what they've recognized is, as much as they pretend to be against the state or the police, right? The minute let's say right now, if they go to punch a Nazi, let's say a Nazi did, or someone they deem to be a Nazi, go to punch them back, what would they do? Run behind the police. The arms of the police, right? Oh, please protect me. Like, to me, that's a beautiful way to send a very clear message to these people. It's like, yeah, no, we're not going to protect you. You want to punch Nazis? You want to act like the big man? You want to be, use preemptive violence? Well, then you go ahead and do so. But like I say, we're going to be standing on the sidelines while the Nazis, retaliate against the force you're using against them. That, to me, if you want to put yourself in the mind of Antifa or anybody, think about it. That would be a much bigger deterrent than suggesting that the police, who are actually, technically, based on the rules of engagement, they're supposed to actually try to keep the peace. So they're not actually going to be the ones to go after, the opponents with their political or ideological opponents. Whereas, yeah, the person that has the actual incentive to defend themselves against someone that's trying to use violence against them, they do have the proper incentive. Just like in terms of property damage, store owners, especially in some of these cities, if store owners, put the signs up, we're well armed. We got lots of cameras, right? We're here to protect our property. There he is. You still there, Mitchell?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Watch that. Can you see this? Okay, hold on. I swear to fuck, man. Like how does? All right. Can you see? Wait now. I took a picture with my phone just so you could see.
Yeah.
That's the blue screen of death. Literally happened just as I was telling you about it. What are the chances of that? Probably one in, I probably should start playing the lottery pretty soon, I would imagine, for something like that happen. Basically at the same time I was just saying that, yeah, I've had that happen to me. Anyways, I'm glad at least came back to the original stream without having to restart a new one. Boy, I wish I knew what the fuck was going on with that. Though that's some odd stuff, right? Don't you find stuff like that so crazy, right?
Yeah,
Especially the crazy part is, and like I say, I don't even have that kind of conspiratorial mind, but knowing, like, with all the information that I have in my head, like when things like that happen, you just can't help but think, I don't know. But
stream crashes. I've changed my audio twice.
And I mean, it just seems to be so. But once again, it is what it is. It could be just a totally fucking fluke. So whatever it is, what it is, we're back now. I totally lost my train of thought, obviously. So if you just want to kind of go wherever you want to pick up wherever I left off, because I don't even know what the hell that was.
Not so much about Antifa, but I would like to hear more about kind of your views on the policing and the RCMP, because there's been kind of a mixed confusion with, like, I understand your point of view, but some people don't get your point of view. You're not saying that everyone in the RCMP is bad and you don't want to, like, have no police force at all. And I think that's where people are kind of misunderstanding you. And I like to have that.
But you know what's funny though, Mitchell? I normally would like to make, and I've made excuse for a lot of people, but the problem is it's so easy. And when they do it, how I know that they're actually doing it because they're not intellectually curious. They're just playing politics. Anyways, all this stuff's still opening up on my goddamn computer now. It's because it's just been restarted. So all this other crap. But anyways, no, what it is if people want to actually know, and I offer even a couple ones I had a couple disagreements with this morning. Even I had Facebook, Twitter. I've had like 3 or 4 of them just basically all going at once, and I offer the same to every one of them. Now you're one of those people that I know that's actually actively curious and wants to know what I think about it, because we're sitting here discussing it. But these people that, like I say, they get on there, they want to do their political talking points, they want to set up a straw man that, like, I'm Black Lives Matter, and I just want pure anarchy. I want like Mad Max, man. I want like fucking flamethrowers be all over the streets. We should all be in Walmart with like AKs and stuff. Like, just like, hello, like, whatever happened to the days that were like me and Mitchell here? See how we kind of engage in dialogue and have an actual conversation? That's how you deal with your differences, and actually that's how you get clarity, is by actually asking the person, rather than, like I say, going to all the bother of setting up yourself nice little straw man and having an argument. It's like, but I'm over here. Like, I don't know what the straw man. Yeah, you're kicking the straw man's ass there. I get it. You're chalking up those talking points against the straw man, but I'm not over there arguing the points that you're trying to suggest or allude to. So how about coming over here where I am, and we can deal. But yeah, I'll clarify it for you here in this stream. And for the people that are, I don't know, too shy, or I think what it is, it's not even that they're shy. Some of them probably are. I think what it is they know the minute they get me on the camera and we actually have a conversation, I'm going to dispel all their myths. I'm going to make them look like a fucking fool for daring to accuse me of being a person that supports, like, yeah, we're just all running the streets with flamethrowers and trying to kill each other. It's like, what the hell's wrong? I got 2 sons, Anyways, go ahead.
That's what I don't understand. It's like, you make an opinion about something and they automatically assume you're against the whole idea. Or if, like, if you call someone out for one certain thing, like you made a post on Twitter, I forget what it was, and then all, like, a lot of the PPC people went like ridiculous, like, oh, you don't, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, Bennett's a founding member. He had plenty of candidates on here. Like, let him make his point.
Yeah,
and then form an opinion. I even said that on the reply on Twitter, right?
And I appreciate that too. Yeah,
and it's like, you and I, like, agree on some things, and then some things we're obviously different on. But we're not sitting here like calling each other out on their values or harassing one another. We're having 2 adults are having a good conversation and discussing it.
Yeah. And that's what I'm all about. I want to have discussion because at the end of the day, I firmly believe in my heart and in my mind and soul. I believe that most people have relatively good intentions, not all the time, but what is creating this divide, and this is why, like I say, which is why I refuse to go with the left-right thing, because as you see, this is what takes place. The minute you create this kind of divide, now the left-right is easier because it's just it's a binary. It's 50-50, one or the other, like just a flip. But all forms of identity politics or groupthink or collectivism, this is at the very core of the issue. If we look at and perceive each other and treat each other as individuals, then we don't have to play this game when I say something, because what happens, what you're seeing out there is people that are playing this left, right. So if I say something that seems to align or agree with people on the left, such as Antifa or BLM, in terms of defunding the police, because that's all I support. I've never said ban the police, right? No. All I've said is defund. And once again, all in terms of that is defund the police that's to me, that's a conversation starter. Hashtag defund the police. Let's talk about it then. If you want to know what I expand upon, what I actually mean or what I support, yes, then we can get into that. But like I say, what you're seeing out there today is because people perceive of each other as there's only two things, right? Is you either are left or right. They don't get the nuance of independence or critical thought because they're constantly inundated and told that it's only left or right. If a PPC candidate that would normally identify as a right winger sees me agreeing with something in terms of defund the police, they're what are you, a commie lover? What are you, an Antifa guy? But it's like no. See that's the beautiful thing about being an individual and being respected or treated as an individual is you don't have to get that pretense. Just like you, I won't treat you, like I say, even if, like you said, you're a member and or you're the EDA for your writing and all. So, but I will never treat you as like, well, he's part of PBC, so therefore he must just only think in whatever the policy position is on every level at every. No, like I say, I'm pretty sure you're more nuanced than that. So, but that's the major issue and why I think I've kind of been a little bit out in front and leading in terms of that. And I think eventually a lot more people are going to have to catch up and realize that the only way we're going to get through these issues and actually deal with them properly so that all people in society, left, right, or independents, are actually thinking, okay, we can make this work, is if we actually do engage in genuine dialogue and conversation. This constant running towards the echo chambers where the lefties all just sit and circle jerk and talk about their shit, and all the right wingers all just do. And like I say, I get it, and I feel like I'm that guy in the middle. It's like, where the hell did everybody go? It's like, can we sit down? That's what I literally feel like. I feel like the guy that's sitting at the middle portion of the table, and I'm like, okay, can you guys, come on back? Okay, you guys can, come on, both of you, come on now. Listen, okay, no swinging. Right? No, but that's literally like I feel like. But at some point in time, both sides are going to realize that yes, the more you dig your trenches and run your political perspective corners, the more you're just doubling down on each other's resolve in terms of sticking to their ideology and perceiving you as the enemy. Like I say, how we figure this stuff out is actually coming together and talk about it. And like I say, I will definitely do that for Mitchell here and explain what I mean when I say defund the police. Just like when me and my son, we had our stream, is right now the current system as it is set up, and like I say, there's so many multiple layers, redundant layers of bureaucracy, whether you're talking about the police unions and all these things, is it does get the point. And like I say, not just Camden, New Jersey as an example, but as you're seeing, even the counselors down in Minneapolis right now, is there does get the point where it becomes so institutionalized. The policy, the culture is so toxic in some of these places that to reform it would be, first of all, it'd be tremendously expensive, very hopeful, and not exactly aligned with the outcome that people would expect or hope for. Because like I say, we've seen this happen. The U.S. basically has tried a couple iterations in terms of reform. But no, to change the culture means you actually change up the entire structure so you're not using the same institution. So this is what I keep saying to people all the time. You want to know how you vacate the state where you don't need big government? Well, police are a function of the government. And because police are a function of the government and an entity of the government, they're funded by way of taxation. So there's no way for us as citizens to withdraw the support for these organizations when they do wrong, or they're not upholding the policies that Canadians would expect. Whereas if what I'm saying is let's get something, and because we do have blockchain technology with smart contracts, we can start in our local jurisdictions or communities and properly fund, and it would not require the same kind of resource, because like I say, there's so much redundant bureaucracy that actually a lot of the policing is actually not going to actually protecting communities. It's to filling up government coffers with largesse from people who have maybe, gone a little bit over the speed limit, or, didn't practice proper isolation while they were out walking their dog by themselves. Like, none of this has to do with actual justice. If you want justice, like you say, you have to properly incentivize. And under the current structure, no one is incentivized to do the right thing, because it's completely entrenched and embedded in these organizations to be part and parcel of protecting the state, growing the state, and keeping their paychecks, which comes once again at the end by way of forced wealth and income redistribution. So if we want to get people that are doing the right thing, at the very least, the funding model, like I say, and it's not that difficult. People constantly say all the time, and I hear especially right wingers, well, we need people to protect and serve the community. I 100% agree. Matter of fact, I've done that basically most of my adult life, and I've never wore a badge, right? Never donned a whatever you call them, or a surge as far as your thing, or put on any kind of uniform. But I definitely have the incentive to want to protect people in my local community, because I expect them to want to return and reciprocate that for me. That's what it is. Now, how it comes about, once again, I'm not a central planner, but I do know that the good people, that's the thing with these police officers right now. Let's say there are some that go into it, especially initially, right? If you've gone into it and you've got that, eyes wide open, or not eyes wide open, but you're all wide-eyed about, I'm going to finally do what I was told that this is what I want to go and protect and serve the public. But what you find out a lot of them do is actually, no, you're just, like I say, you're just like a road pirate for the status or the government hacks that constantly want to plunder the people, or you're like a petty thug that's carrying out the orders or edicts of some very authoritarian politicians. Whereas the good police, if we had, like I say, actual organizations that were funded voluntarily by people in their community, that would mean two things. First of all, the people would deem that not only appropriate, but they could withdraw the support. And the kind of people that would want to be police officers in a voluntary paid organization, where it's actually community type policing, where they're actually going to be held to account and responsible for their actions, right? Without all these added layers of bureaucracy or protection, so that they can basically get away with doing anything. The good people would automatically gravitate. It's like, no, I don't want to stay with the RCMP, because I know there's some really, really corrupt stuff. And even the policy in there comes all the way from the top, where corruption is just rampant. Well, I want those good people, those good police officers that I hear right wingers talk about all the time. I want them to be able to go somewhere and, like I say, be funded be funded, publicly or privately, but like I say, by people voluntarily funded, and for them to be able to do a job where they can have a sense of pride and accomplishment that they actually did what they intended to do so in the first place. But that's not what's happening for a lot of the police jurisdictions or police outfits in this country. Sorry, go ahead, Mitchell.
They're not going to bite the hand that feeds them. So, I mean,
right.
If the, like, I'm not saying, I don't know if I share the same as defunding the police. Like, maybe we could have like less money going to the RCMP, and then have maybe smaller police forces, like you're saying, like privately funded,
right?
And maybe have both, because I don't.
Yeah.
Because there are there's this this kind of stigma now, like not in the States with the George Floyd killing. That every cop is racist or every cop is bad.
Yeah, that's bullshit. Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Like, not every cop, but I said, who's worse, the cop that had the knee on his back, or the 3 cops that didn't do anything?
Yeah, exactly.
Or how about the 30 people that had a camera out?
Yeah,
recording it and not doing anything. So who is really, they're all in blame, right? But I don't think we should get rid of the RCMP. I think maybe. Kind of have it like, if a community wants to have their own private police force, like maybe just like even start with like a small neighborhood, like a small subdivision, or like just a small area, and see how it works. And then if things do get out of hand, then maybe then kind of have the RCMP for backup if things get too bad. Because I mean, most neighborhoods, there's not killings and people being robbed, and I don't think you need to waste as much tax dollars on having them everywhere. They shouldn't be a military force.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, Mitchell, but that's the thing, and totally for sure. Like, I don't think it's anything is going to happen overnight in terms of like we're just going to get rid of the police forces or the RCMP. But like I say, offer up at least alternative solutions and options to people, and like you say, test it out. Now, my thing is like, well, even if they get, when you were saying, even if they get out of hand, we'll get the RCMP. Is like, I don't know what, like, why do people have this pretense or believe that the RCMP is going? They're just people at the end of the day, and I think the RCMP actually has less of an incentive to do the right thing. Whereas, like I say, I'm imagining the scenario that you just painted, which is like a localized police force that the people of the community actively chose. Like down in the U.S., the sheriff's department knows they're even voted, so the people actually have to vote in. So the majority of the people have to accept. So, like I say, if the majority of the people, whether it's by vote or they just got together and had big community meetings or organized meetups, and they all figured out what was going to be a good option. Like I say, that automatically sets it up to me that these are people that are going to, first of all, the incentive structures, they're going to want to go into it for the right reasons, first and foremost. And second of all, because they are local, the people in that community who are funding them are going to want to hold them to account. And the officers that are going into it, it's not going to last very long if they go in there and it was all just a farce and they become just full on authoritarian. I don't even see, like, for their bottom line, it wouldn't work out, because that's going to be an experiment that's going to end real quick. So I think actually offering alternative solutions and option is something. But like I say, before we completely disband, take that, like you say, reduce the RCMP. Now, this is me just speculating, not me trying to come up with policy, because I'm not a central planner. But let's say you did reduce the police budget, especially in places like Toronto, where their budget is like, what is it, the biggest line items on the entire budget of the government, right? So let's say you just reduced it by, like 10%. So you still have lots of still active policing and all that. But that 10%, yes, you could, first of all, because there's 10% less in the budget, that would be an incentive. And what I would suggest to the politicians, the legislators, is, okay, now you're either going to have to reduce the amount of police officers on your force or reduce their pay or whatever thing. And I would say reducing the pay is not a good idea, because actually you want these people to be properly rewarded or compensated. So what you want to do is take that smaller amount of resources or a smaller pool, or that pool of police officers, and instead of spread them so thin where they're actively patrolling or dealing with things that aren't even crime related, like some of these illegal dispensaries that they keep going after. But the only reason why they're illegal is because Trudeau said, oh, these people are allowed to sell weed. You're not, because you don't have a government license. That, if you take, like I say, take a lot of the laws and rules off the books that police are out actively enforcing that they shouldn't have to be doing in the first place, then they would be able to spend time actively patrolling and taking care of their local communities and the violent crimes that actually, that's kind of the main reason why you want police, right? So well, to me, so that would be the big thing. First of all, is just function better with your budget and give police less and less that they have to do, and make sure that they're dealing with actually enforcing the laws properly and protecting and serving. Take that 10% that you have and set up an alternative, like some like Mitchell was saying, some smaller community or jurisdiction where that there's, they've got big problems or issues with the people in the community. There's no longer much trust between the particular police that are there now. Try a completely different option and see how that works out. And if it proves to be a fruitful endeavor and it's a positive experience for both the police and the community, well, that's a beautiful example where now you just replicate that in all different places or jurisdictions, and you might have to tweak or tinker around the edges, because like it's not going to be a one size fits all approach. But that's the beauty of the market, rather than government, a one size fits all approach, is the market is going to be more adapted and suitable to every particular jurisdiction. That's the beauty, just like with grocery stores. My wife works at a grocery store, but even if I go to that same grocery store and there's one in New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Quebec, Ontario, they have typically a lot of the same foods, but because they cater to their local population, there might be foods of different ethnic backgrounds, because that's what they're trying to cater to. Just like with policing, just like with anything, let's stick with a more community-based approach, especially when you're talking about policing, because I think it'd be more acceptable and apt to be in something that the citizens would accept. What do you think, Mitchell? I think that's a
I think it's fair. I see the RCMP as they're like monopoly, right? There's no one else policing anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not I don't think the RCMP itself is, a horrible organization. It's they're kind of, their hand is forced by the government, because the government's paying them and our tax dollars are paying for them, that they're kind of forced to toe the party line, who's ever in power in a way.
Yeah, but I don't like I'm just following orders. That was after Nuremberg, that's kind of a faulty argument. And I even a guy actually, unfortunately, he private messaged me, and I won't say his name, and I won't publicly shame him or anything like that. But he was basically saying like, yeah, I'd like to talk more open about this stuff, but I work for government myself. And it's like, I get it, folks. But here, listen, I just got to point this out time and time again. I'm someone that, yeah, I could have actively gone to work for government and suppressed or denied all my principles and just use the thing, well, hey, I just got to provide for my family. But I choose to hold myself to a higher standard. And has it been detrimental to my economic bottom line? Yeah, big friggin' time. But you know what? It's more important because I want to stand on principle and the proper kind of ideas and that philosophy that I hold so dear, which is like let's find things that are both in pursuit of happiness, truth, and actual meaning. So I get it, but to me, that's why I say, and this is why if any police officers, and I know some that do watch my stream, military and police, I do, because people like, tend to agree with libertarians especially when I'm railing against left. So I know a lot of them watch me, but I have your best interest in heart. I don't want you to be working for these fucking organizations if you're a good, decent person. I want you to have the option to go somewhere where, like I say, you can serve the members of the public or the citizenry in your particular jurisdiction and feel proud about what kind of jobs you're doing because you're doing the right thing. But like I say, the cops know they're out there now actively, like even these ones or some of these bylaw officers or just even regular police that are, ticketing all these people for doing things. And they know it. But I am so tired of hearing these people come back with the excuse, well, hey, Trudeau said that we have to do it, so I have to. Well, like I say, come on. If you've watched the stories now, I get this thing, the Nuremberg trials. I get there's no gas chambers or anything like that. I get that's a little bit, more severe, but it's still the same mindset is, well, I got to put down or forget about my principles, put them on the back burner for a paycheck. And I just can't help but point out that that's been proven to be detrimental. And that's why we're finding ourselves in the position we are today. And I get that it's difficult, which is why the onus is on not just people like myself, but people like those of us that are actively engaged in this to figure out ways to help these people so that they have a means. Like even in terms of starting to promote having in terms of the police forces, a way for someone to actually whistleblow without being punished. Although it sounds good in theory, and I realize that, but I'm pretty sure most people in these police office or these police units or these police institutions realize that if they speak up against the bad actors in their organization, they're the one that's going to get desk duty. They're the ones that's going to never get a promotion. And so, yeah, I want to properly incentivize the good people to do the right thing. Now, that kind of whistleblower type of legislation, obviously that would have to come through the politics. But at the end of the day, if we had a properly enshrined First Amendment in this country, that and protections for people that do actively work for any organization or entity, and stop having all these goddamn privacy. To me, that's another thing. Why is there got to be non-disclosure agreements for almost seemingly everything. Public sector employee, right? I mean, I can understand if you're part of CSIS, like, if you're spying on foreign countries, yeah, you probably don't want to go around advertising that stuff, right? I totally get that. But it seems like almost every layer of government bureaucracy or institutions have like NDAs that everyone basically has to sign to shut the hell up. To me, knowing this, I know me personally, and like I said, I don't want to judge everyone out there, but chances are if you're going into a government to work for the government and to do so, to be gainfully employed in that particular occupation, you have to be willing to say, no matter what I see or hear or how bad people act out, I have to stay shut up and never mention it. Yeah, probably not a good idea to go into that particular job.
Maybe we could from a central planning standpoint, maybe we could dissolve the police unions and, like you said, where they vote sheriffs and stuff in the States. Maybe we can do that in Canada. So if the leadership is bad, you vote them out and get someone in that has principles and morals.
Yes,
and they're not protected by a union and all those things.
Yeah, well, especially for a government entity. I always found that completely messed up. Anyways, when you work for the government, you also already have basically the most powerful union on the planet because you're part of government. Hello. And then to have another one. To me, the whole premise or point of unions back in the day, as far as I understood it, was to protect people in the private sector because, if the big bad employer wanted to treat his employees like shit and you had no protections, right? It's like, okay, but But at the same time, it
Times
is
have
actually in the
changed.
private sector, there's very, very minimal in terms of actual unions. And there's much more in terms of government, which, like I say, which seems really weird. You really need, two layers of these strong men or these institutions to protect you. That is an issue, which is why it's so hard to hold anyone to account. And we all know this. There's so many countless examples. I even just in my lifetime, I've seen where the police, they've investigated themselves and nobody did anything wrong. It's like, come on. Well, without proper oversight, and you're not going to get that because, like I say, these unions, these organizations, they know how to make sure there's like multiple layers of redundancy, of bureaucracy, so that no one is truly held to account.
They're going to protect their own.
Yeah, right. And I just, like I say, I think for the citizens and for the good people in this country who do want to be enforcers of the state, like who want to work in, although I prefer to call them peace officers or police officers, to be honest with you, because really actively, that's what you should be doing in our modern Western countries, is looking to protect and serve and keep the peace, not necessarily be law enforcement per se, because that even that connotation kind of gives you a wrong psychology in how you're supposed to perceive the public, right? But if you do want to be a peace officer and serve and protect the public and, like I say, keep the peace, then you definitely want to be in an organization that's going to hold the bad actors to account, where you're not the one that has to shut up and be silenced and never speak out because you're worried about losing your job.
That's why I think it'd be a good idea to add some private sector, like police forces in, like I said, like small communities and see what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be less. Yeah, if it's a private, you're going to have to hire the community or a community board, or maybe the town council hires those people, right? You're going to have more trust in those people, and then those people are going to have a closer connection, mentally and emotionally to that neighborhood. So they're going to protect people more, though. I think you'd have to do more screening so you don't get some crazy person that wants to protect the neighborhood and goes around shooting people. But there's I think like we can both agree, I think that we scale back the RCMP and at least allow more options.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like with the weed, like legalizing weed. I thought that was a great idea.
Me too.
And that's how I was like, but it's like, wait a second, but only the government can distribute and sell
it. Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
It's like, it's more expensive, like than buying it like from, and it's like you go buy it from a dealer, it's like that's not from the government, it's illegal. You have to buy it in the liquor store in the South. Why not?
Yeah.
Get like business owners to sell it in stores, like and have like, I don't know if you want to have like a database saying like these people, here's how much the person's buying or something, like they do with opiates for pain pills, and by all means do that, but don't just limit it to government profit.
Yeah, well, especially when people use that title and you can tell it's like, you're just regurgitating a political talking line when they say, oh, yeah, but the reason why government has to be in control and to regulate it is because, all those bad drug dealers in the private sector or the black market, they might be lacing it with stuff to kill their. It's like, first of all, that guy wants you to come back. You get that. The whole point of a drug dealer is to get you to come back. If he kills you off, damn, that's not going to work out too well for his bottom line. Like that's what drives me so nuts. It's like when people, it's like, can you at least think about this? Not to suggest that there aren't particular individuals who might have a grievance for maybe one person and maybe do something. But if they're that evil, they're going to find some other way to carry out their act. Whether
they're not, they're not going to invest in a business and buy a building and make and like product. It's absurd. Like they're doing it to, obviously, then it's going to employ people. Like like and it doesn't make sense. Same as alcohol. Why can the liquor stores only sell alcohol? Like why not sell them in a convenience store? Sell them in a grocery store. They do in the United States.
Yeah,
you can go in and buy a T-bone steak and buy a 12-pack of beer at the same place and walk out, and it's cheaper.
Yeah. In Quebec too.
In Quebec too. Well, I don't think they sell hard liquor in the.
No, not hard liquor.
Just beer.
Oh, you're right.
Beer in gas stations.
Yeah, no, it's just beer. But
like it's a good idea.
Yeah, it is. It is. But like you were saying, and even with the whole weed thing, I mean, come on, we actually have evidence. Because I pay attention to stuff. I've partaken in the cannabis activities, as a young man and even as an adult. And I'll just say, out of all the experiences I've ever had, all the stories, all the news, I've never heard of one Canadian yet that I've ever heard died from smoking marijuana, even from those bad black market drug dealer guys that are trying to lace it with what? I don't know. So it's a pretty good track record and a pretty good history that actually shows, which is why the black market is still, even with big government, look at all those big cannabis companies on the market that took a shit kicking. Why? Because most Canadians actively still trust met in their local drug dealer met in apartment 6B. That's why they still trust him. Why? Because he's been taking care of them for all these years, long before government ever came around. And that's what's going to take place in most jurisdictions, is people are going to trust the source that they've come to know and trust prior to that. And they're not going to make a decision based on the fact that some central planner said, no, you go here instead of here. They're going to use their own personal experiences in that manner. And I think it's a great idea to open up the market for cannabis related products, especially in Canada, because there's a lot of growth. Like I say, there's a lot of history of cannabis growth in this country, and a lot of very smart entrepreneurs who, like I say, who've been supplying the cannabis industry or the cannabis consumers in this country for decades and decades with primo quality products, all might add.
Yeah, it's weird because not to make it a political point, but if whether you're on the left or the right, and whether you're a libertarian or an authoritarian, most people that go, we need to have the government do this, we need to have the government do this, the government has to sell this, they're usually the authoritarian types that want everything centrally planned.
Yeah,
which is true. Funny, people assume from me, because I'm heavily involved in politics, I want big government. But if anyone reads, I want smaller government. The government shouldn't have their hands in everything. They shouldn't have it in weed. They shouldn't have it in controlling all of alcohol except for Quebec. They shouldn't have it in the supply match with dairy, eggs, and poultry. Let the free market grow so it creates competition. Allow American cell phone companies in so we don't have paying these god-awful rates for home phone and internet and everything else. It's like the government just wants their hands. Well, big government people want their hands in everything so they have more tax dollars. Then we're taxed more. On top of that, they make more money, then we're taxed more.
Yeah. And if you ask most individuals, as long as you just don't bring up a topic that they disagree with or they're against vehemently, and you said, if it's anything and they're like, and it's just a casual conversation, as soon as you bring up competition, how it raises and elevates, for sure, 100%. But if it's a particular niche topic that they disagree with you with politically, then all of a sudden competition is a bad thing. Like, what? You know darn well in your life, you know 100% every opportunity you've ever had where there was someone else offering a service or a product, more than one, that benefited you over the one that just had one. You got a higher quality piece at a lower price point by sheer fact that there was competition looking to entice you to take on or assume their service or their product rather than their competitors. So like I say, it's just people that they will reject things that they know that is completely consistent with the human experience and everything that they've lived their whole life, but they'll reject that based on the ideology that's jamming around in their head. To me, it's like, and that's that cognitive dissonance that really does, I think, is at the heart and core of a lot of the issues. I think most people, they just need to, and I get how difficult it is, and I've said this in many past videos too, it's not easy, and I'm actually not even going to laugh because it's a very serious thing. I know how difficult it is when you have to go through that learning curve because you've been told some stupid shit your whole life, and you have been consistent in your values and principles because you haven't had the proper kind of leadership to keep you in that proper mental state. But it is really important, like I say, for us to do so as adults, to put away our biases. I've had to do it. Like, that's the thing. I'm not like I'm a human just like every other human. I have my own internal biases. Guaranteed I have my own internal biases, but I constantly got to keep them in check and remind myself every fucking day that it's not about me at the end of the day. It's about ideas, and the ideas and the consistency of the ideas and the principle that I think most of us in the West, like I say, every conversation I've ever had, people from the left or the right, most people, like I say, have good intentions, right? So I just, to me, I'm saying, don't be fearful of change. And this is definitely something that the conservatives are branded with much more so than the liberals. Although I will say the liberals seem to be turning into a bunch of conservatives, uptight,
more authoritarian,
more moralizers now. Like, say, what the hell's up? But I mean, come on, conservatives are typically known for not being quite as willing to adopt change quite as readily, and for good reason, because it goes all the way back like a through our psychology, through the way we evolved, and the fact that we want to protect our in-group from foreign threats. So I totally understand that, but there's no point to keep that held so near and dear that you're willing to reject common sense or reason. To me, it's like, let's just start thinking about it. And conservatives just know, especially when you're talking about libertarians like myself, I won't speak for everyone. It's anything I do or support or promote is never about promoting like anarchy or lawlessness, but actually I'm actually more consistent in my principles, I find, than even some of the people on the right, is because I want people to actually be properly protected, and I want the police to be respected by the members of the community, because that I do see that there's a lot of issues between us, not just minority groups. That's the other thing too. Stop making it about race. The problem with Black Lives Matter, and I'm friends with Remigio, and actually I shared his post on my personal page and my Canadian Libertarian Facebook page. If you want to check that out, it was beautifully well written, beautifully stated and articulated by Remigio. And he was that guy. You remember him, Mitchell? He was the Four Tenors guy. Remember Okay, he was part of the Four Tenors, and it's been a few years now, so I'm not going to remember exactly, but it might have even been during another police brutality thing, and I think it was when that Colin Kaepernick,
he took the knee in
an
NFL game.
Anyways, all he did was when they were performing the national anthem, and I believe it was even here in Canada, it was in the U.S. But anyways, they were performing in a concert, they were performing for a game. Was it a baseball game? Anyways. And basically, he just rephrased the words like he said, basically, all lives matter. All lives matter instead of the Black Lives Matter. And all his three other team members realized that was the politically incorrect thing to say. They basically, threw him to the dogs, basically treated him as if like he's the outcast now, and he's no longer part of the Four Tenors. And he's had a lot of backlash for daring to say something as benign as all lives matter. And I get the gist of what he was saying, but because people tried to politicize what he was saying, they tried to make it as if he was trying to deny that Black Lives Matter, right? And like obscure the fact that they were fighting for the black people. But all he was really trying to do is be more inclusive, say, well, it's not just black people. It is. It's literally all lives matter if you're being abused or treated poorly by anybody, whether it's a police officer or just someone else in your community. Yes, all lives should matter. And the fact that people will politicize something like that and divide us along those lines, especially the racial, because when someone says like that, especially of any kind of celebrity status, that's a good time where we should all actually say, I can't imagine if Martin Luther King was alive today, he'd be saying, yeah, I agree wholeheartedly, because he said basically the same thing and just in different words. Is it's not the color of your skin, but the content of your character. So to me, that's the thing I would like to reach out. And I've been asking people if they know any Black Lives Matter protesters or even some people that are supporters of Antifa. I would like to talk with them because, if you want even people like libertarians or some of those right wingers, if you want people to come together and show a solidarity and force against oppressive police or authoritarian tactics, then stop making along racial lines, because to me, it pisses me off, and especially personally, because I've suffered at the hands of the police and my own son. And he was just sitting in the passenger seat. See, I won't go into his own personal situation because that hasn't actually gone fully through the courts as of yet, many years later. But yeah, my son was treated terribly. And like I say, all he was doing was recording. Anyways, so like I've even been witness, and my son has been experienced police brutality himself in this country. So I definitely know it exists. But once again, I'm not going to use that as a blanket statement to say that all police should be treated like garbage or thrown in jail or what I do, like I say, what I want to do is, because I can't know every individual in any organization, I want the organizations to be representative, or at least as closely aligned with the culture of the particular jurisdiction or the community and what those people require from their services, the people that provide that services. The more local you are, the more accountability. And like I say, then the police won't have this goddamn abrasive relationship with the public no more, because the people will be saying, hey, those are the people we want here, right? And think about how much more peaceful. And when people are that much more peaceful with each other, and you're not looking or perceiving each other as opponents or enemies, then you do have a much closer knit society or community of people that maybe you don't even need the police as much, because you'll be looking forward to taking care of each other and placing less and less burden on the police. That's the other thing too. Personal responsibility is stepping up, people taking that personal responsibility for themselves, for their neighbors, and for their community, and stop, I seen something, let me go call the police, right? I mean, I understand there's certain situations, if it's 2:00 in the morning and there's a bunch of guys in ski masks. Yeah, I'm not saying go out, right, go out there and say, hey guys, how you doing, right, or anything. But there are plenty of situations where people call the police unneeded and unnecessary, and all it does is escalate and cause more tension and puts strain between the public and the police even further, right?
Yeah, back to your point about the politicizing of the Black Lives Matter, then when someone says all lives matter, I've done a pretty good job of staying away from it on Facebook and Twitter. I've tried my best, but it's like I don't get it. Like, if you have one opinion or the other, like you said, you're automatically deemed to the left or to the right on the issue, or you're
Yep.
deemed racist. Like I've said many times, and then I'll say it here is like, like Elizabeth May earlier in the week said the RCMP are a racist organization. Like, you're giving everyone you're punishing one person's actions, and you're deeming everyone with that same. You're starting with the same paintbrush. It's absurd. Like,
Mhm.
when I said before, like Black Lives Matter, I don't even like. I get their reason for like saying Black Lives Matter, but there's no difference. I mean, if how do I word this? If there's no difference whether you're black, you're white, you're Chinese, you're Middle Eastern, socially and economically, we're all the same, unless you're a criminal or a degenerate.
Right.
There's no reason to label this a right or a left idea, and that's what's happening. And that's why I've tried to stay away from it. Is like I said, all lives matter. I'm like, once you become a racist, I'm like, I didn't bring race into it at all. We're human beings in a country that are going through issues, and most political people, not all political people, but most of them, especially, are making it a political issue. It's not a political issue. It's a humanitarian issue.
Yeah.
Like, put the politics aside for this one issue, for some of these issues, and work through it. Don't bury yourself in an echo chamber and stay there.
Mm.
It doesn't make sense to me.
No, I agree. And that's like I say, that's the part that kind of irks me the most, is this constant politicizing, because I want, like I say, and then I think about the First Nations community. Like I say, I know I've actually personally, because I'm from New Brunswick and I've been to some of these communities and myself. And
I'm only 10 minutes away from a First Nations reserve.
Yeah. And I mean, to me, actually, collectivism is at the very core of why a lot of these communities have so many issues, is because people aren't treated properly.
Corrupt leaders at the top.
Yeah, exactly. And that, to me, that is, and I, like I say, I definitely have a lot of respect for the people who are trying to, fight against this stuff. But to me, once again, at the end of the day, and this is why I always look to reach out to people from, like I say, and First Nations people as well. And I talk with a lot of them. A lot of them don't necessarily want to come on to put themselves out there publicly, and maybe they're fearful for doing so. But I have private communications with a substantial portion of people from First Nation communities. And actually, we agree with each other tremendously on so many issues. I'm very, very, but it's the kind of people that, like I say, they want to discuss ideas. They don't give a shit about like what color your skin is or what your background. That I've never had anyone say, you're Irish, you're a colonist or whatever this shit, right? It's like, no, it's just two people usually talking about a fundamental issue that affects like I say, when you're talking about policing or police brutality or corruption, that affects people from lots of all communities: white people, black people, brown people, red people, yellow people. Anybody, like it's going to affect you if you live in any jurisdiction where there's policing and the way these, like I say, the way the systems are currently set up and structured, which create a lot of crimes out of things that actually aren't actual crimes. But the police have to actively, as part of their duties, go out and enforce these ridiculous acts of legislation or policies. Is yes, you're creating a lot of angst, a lot of divisiveness, and where it doesn't even need to be. Like I say, I'm under no illusion that even if you defund the RCMP and set up, I'm under no illusion that everything's going to be peachy cream and everything's going to be perfect. But at the end of the day, all that matters to me most is I want whatever act you're going to implement to correct the current situation, make sure at the core there is a way for all people to be held to account and withdraw their support. Because government, this is the problem with government function under a forced wealth and income redistribution model, which is why I'm against big government, is because now you've destroyed the incentives for all of the layers. Same with the education system. I believe there's some amazing teachers in this country that have done a tremendous job of educating and informing a lot of Canadians, millions of them, right? But I also think that those particular ones are probably being paid a lot lower than they should be, while a lot of their peers who are doing a terrible job at it and actually probably indoctrinating their students rather than properly educating them are getting paid just as much, if not more, because, like I say, they're not functioning under an actual market-driven structure in terms of their wages. Same with the police. Not all police are the same. If they function under market-driven wages, if the guy is really good at his job, the people in the community respect them, and no, it's not based on quotas. It's based on the fact is he keeping the peace? There's lots of ways to measure effectiveness of policing. It doesn't have to necessarily mean how many tickets you wrote, right? But yes, you want to incentivize people who are doing the best job, and if you want to do it through monetary means or other incentives, whether it's promotions in the ranks or accreditations or awards. Like there's lots of ways, like I say, but the system that we currently function under, there's no way for us to withdraw support. It's so centralized. I mean, the RCMP is a police force that basically, it's federalized. So it's basically Ottawa as the headquarters, but yet it covers a country and mostly rural jurisdictions as vast as Canada, which is like over 3,000 miles just across, right? So yeah, that's just, like I say, that one size fits all approach, and all the policies, like the police have a one way of doing it. So yeah, that's just a bad idea all around as far as I'm concerned. Like I say, that's all that matters to me at the end of the day is let's get to a situation or a scenario where we can all hold each other to account.
No, I agree. I think people need to be held responsible for their actions, and people need to take personal responsibility to actually be better people.
Yeah. Now, listen, I just want to ask you a question there, Mitchell, before we continue on. What I was going to do, first of all, I can check on some of the peeps in the stream, but I was actually going to bring out up on Twitter, but it doesn't matter because I think we covered it pretty good. But what I was going to do, if you wanted, go find my poll, because I actually put a poll on there. Did you see the poll, right?
Yeah, I voted on the poll, and then it was like 5 minutes later, you private messaged me and asked if I had seen it.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay, yeah. So what I was just going to do and go by some of the responses and replies to it and kind of deal with them. Are you cool with that? Or
I'm good with that.
Okay, all right. So that's because like I say, there are people that did respond and reply, and I want to make sure that they kind of understand my position or my stance on things, because I know, like I say, that's the thing with Twitter. I can't stand communicating on Twitter, to be honest with you. It's like, what's that? Sorry?
I actually like Twitter more than Facebook.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, I mean, it's faster in terms of you can get through the feed quicker and stuff, but like to reply, you can only do so many characters, and I'm pretty long-winded.
60.
Yeah. Yeah, to me. And then you got to go into like 1, 2, 3. It's like, it's not even going to bother, because then it looks like it's out of order. And I don't know. Anyways, let me find this here. Oh, here we go. Yeah, there we go. So actually I was hoping to get more responses than what I did, but anyways, I got 557 votes out of it. But yeah, I definitely, and I mentioned this very early on, I'm way in the minority.
What was the final polling numbers?
Yeah. So the question was, if you're a PPC candidate, member, or supporter, I would like to know if you support banning Antifa in Canada. It was 557 total votes. And of course it's online. So it's not like I can appropriate or put forth any pretense of a error or whatever. It's just people's choice. And I would imagine most people that did take this, I would hope at least, were PPC people, because I hashtagged it in there. But anyways, so the final tally was 92.1% yes, believe in banning Antifa, and a lowly 7.9% said no. So like I said, I'm always in the minority anyways. But
I wonder what their definition, when they said yes, I wonder what their definition of the ban was. Like, is it a complete ban, or is it like banning, like having more police force to stop the violence from happening?
Well, yeah, and that's the part where I want to get a few of the replies, see, kind of try to get the pulse and exactly how people are perceiving this.
But I don't know how I don't know how you would separate it. Like, I know it seems a bit extreme, but I've always seen, you're guilty by association. So if you're there being peaceful and your buddies are getting violent, but I don't know. Maybe it is easier to just not let them be an organization. I don't know. I know that seems a bit authoritarian. I'm not usually authoritarian on many things, but that's one thing I think.
Well, yeah, but even I'll even like go full on authoritarian. It's still, and even if you're advocating for that side of it, which I'm not suggesting you are, I know you're not, but I would even point out, even if I agreed with you in some way, I'd be like, but how do you, like, because it's ideas in people's minds, right? The acts, like I say, the acts that they carry out of violence or to cause damage to property, like I say, they're already illegal. Already laws in the book to deal with all of that stuff. So that can definitely be dealt with. But to me, like I say, banning Antifa is to suggest that you can ban like their ideology or their ideas, and all that would really be is like I just imagine if I was an Antifa guy, although I don't suggest that most of them are as smart as I am. But hey, what the hell? Anyways, no, sorry, just joking around. But anyways, but if someone said to me, "Oh, well, Antifa is now a legal organization in Canada. Are you Antifa?" Nope. Not going to tell you the truth now, am I? It's like, oh, you've banned it? Oh, okay. Well, oh no, I'm not Antifa. Meanwhile, I same shit's rolling around in my head, right? It's like exact same person, exact same thing. The only difference is now, rather than telecasting or forecasting basically who I am, what I stand for, and all this stuff, is I don't know what you teach them to lurk around in dark corners or dark alleys, and then don't ever tell anyone what they stand for, but just I don't know, use the violence and deal with it after the fact, kind of like I suppose some of these Islamists are terrorists, right? It's like, oh, you can ban them, but what do? They strap themselves with bombs,
and they still find their way in,
and they blow their asses up. But they blow their own asses up. So what do you? It's like, oh, I want to ban ISIS. Oh, so you're going to ban a guy that's willing to kill himself? Oh, okay. How you? Chances are he's probably going to ban himself, right? But it's probably going to come with a lot of collateral damage, no doubt about it. And I'm not, like I say, I'm not supporting any of this shit. It's just that I realize that even the very notion and idea, which I was actually surprised because me and Maxime have some disagreements for sure, but I never thought the guy that would be like, this almost seems a little bit foolish, naive, and almost kind of childish because I mean, I know, as a matter of fact, if I actually cornered a Maxime, there's no way he fucking believes that you can ban an idea. I just can't imagine how anyone that thinks critically about these issues in any way could suggest that you can ban an idea. It just seems, like I say, I kind of get it, but to me, it almost seemed like he's looking for relevance and to get a little bit more attention. I kind of get it, but once again, you're going to get the attention, yes, but is it necessarily going to be the right kind of attention, right? Yeah, you'll get those, like I say, you'll get, especially the far right types, right? They'll be like, oh, fuck yeah. Oh, yeah. Matter of fact, they're probably jacking off in their bathroom just thinking, oh, yeah, man, Antifa, man. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Didn't mean to bring that stuff. But anyways, no, but yeah, the idea of banning just seems so weird, Mitchell. I'm sorry. I just find it so weird. But anyways, let me, so this was actually, just so you folks realize what I actually had put the poll on for, was the actual post that Maxime had posted originally on Twitter. Let's ban Antifa in Canada. Please sign a petition if you agree that the violent Antifa movement must be banned. So like that to me, like I say, it wasn't even that it was worded that they should be deemed a terrorist organization. Although I would still, like I say, I would still offer pushback and suggest that wouldn't even work in terms of anything that's going to be truly beneficial. I think it's, once again, collective punishment, because some of these people that do join these organizations don't, I've actually seen them. Some of the actors do cause violence, but other of them are there like,
they're just standing there chanting.
Yeah, I'm not here for this. I remember actually there was one that happened in Quebec a few years ago. And there were actually a couple of the Antifa ones that were there that were offering medical help for some of the other people that were injured by the brutes that were the thugs in Antifa. So, like I say, I just want to, like I say, I want to treat each person in this country as an individual, and the people that do commit acts of violence or have criminal intentions or cause damage to people's property and stuff, yeah, go after them as individuals. But like I say, no need to ban an entire organization, right? Anyways, go ahead there, Mitchell. I while you're, if you want to just respond, I'll just look for a couple of these.
Yeah, it's a weird dynamic, and maybe I get the whole ideology ban. It's hard, you can't ban someone's thoughts, but I don't know. I just don't like the idea of some of these they'll call me extreme Antifa branch, going around but the police, like, they're not really enforcing anything. Like, the police are just watching them do this stuff, then they get threatened and they run behind the police. So it's like, who's really helping? I mean, we had a rally outside in Dartmouth. I didn't attend. I was busy in my riding back in the election, and there was like some Antifa people there, and they were just like hollering, and they were like throwing water on our candidates and stuff. And a couple of candidates were like, "Are you going to do anything about this?" And the cop's like, "No." The cop didn't even like stop them from throwing. It was absurd, absolutely absurd.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and if these people, like I say, are actually, and some of them are committing acts of violence and causing property damage, like, what the hell are you waiting for? There's like
It's
I've
back to our
heard,
discussion about accountability.
yeah, well, that's the thing, and I've heard police use the excuse even in terms of when they want to actively charge someone, but they don't have anything to find on them, but they want to find dirt. I've heard even people suggest, and even a lawyer, I swear to God, in New Brunswick, a lawyer even said he had a case before where a person was charged because his wife, or no, he threw it against his wife. I can't remember which way it was. He threw it at his wife or his wife threw it at him. But anyways, a piece of bread, not even toast. Like toast at least would be hardened up, right? But I mean, a fucking piece of bread was charged with assault. So if you can find a technicality in the law to charge, whether it's the man or the wife, for throwing a piece of bread at their spouse, right, and call that assault, then hello, yeah, what the hell's up with all these Antifa thugs going out and doing what they're doing, intimidating, bullying, and using violence towards people that are acting peacefully, and even some elderly people, right? Like, to me, that's the part. It's like, no, at the very least, yes, you don't need to ban Antifa. You don't need to label them terrorists. No, you need the police to stop playing politics and worrying about what their political masters or their higher ups or the senior officers are telling them to do, and do the right thing. If you as a police officer see someone actively, causing harm to another person or property, that's literally what your job description is, dude or chick, whatever the hell you are, right? It's like,
protect citizens,
right? So can you at least, try that one on for size and don't worry about the politics of it all? But that's what's happening. A lot of these police are like, oh yeah, but most of our higher ups, especially if you're talking about places like Ontario or let's say British Columbia, oh yeah, but the rest of the political class, the media class, a lot of the judges, a lot of the crown, but they're all lefties. And if I go after the lefties, oh no, I'm going to be, well, that's it. I'm on the line now. But that's the problem. Like I say, politics should not have anything to do with actual justice. That's the problem. Where, like I say, and because today, especially after 800 years since Magna Carta even come to exist, we kind of understand. It's very nuanced throughout our legal system what an actual crime should entail without politicizing. But once again, it starts all the way at the top, from the prime ministers and the premiers through the judges, the court system. Political activism needs to cease as something that takes place in our justice system. That is of paramount importance, or even our legal or political system. Or actually, I shouldn't say political system, because politics that's what the political system is all about, I guess. But in terms of how the laws are enforced in this country, or how the citizens are treated, yes, let's be consistent. And we do know it's really simple. Violence and property theft are actual crimes, and they're easily provable to be crimes. And nobody's going to say that you're being a bad officer by
doing your job,
by protecting people, their persons or their property. Right. So come on, just doing your job and stop worrying about being political fodder for your political masters. But that's the thing. We're not seeing it. I would be really excited, and I'm hopeful still that maybe I still might see that. I would love to see, maybe some members of any particular police organization in this country actually stand up and maybe create their own video or do something where they're saying, yeah, we agree. We want to be in a better position to properly, take care of the citizens, protect and serve, but without so much political authority dictating, controlling, and micromanaging everything we do it there. That I would like to see, and maybe that would actually embolden others to speak out, and maybe we might finally get somewhere and get some things done where we can actually put not just the police force in this country, but the rest of the government doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. Because even as a libertarian, not a fan of government, but hey, if we can at least get it to start functioning even remotely the way it was set up or originally designed, right, based on how the founding fathers talked about, if we could even get remotely close to that, like I say, I'd be pretty happy and content. Maybe not fully, but much happier than I am right now.
I think if there was a video, actually, a female police officer in the States, I forget what state she was in, she actually put a video up pretty much addressing the points that we're addressing today. And it was like half an hour later, Facebook or YouTube took the video down.
Yeah, that's fucking bullshit, man.
It doesn't make sense. Like I understand if like you're blatantly, being a bigot or a racist, but if you're coming from a place of morals and have values and conviction, people should be heard. Like I don't agree with much of what the Green Party says, like that far to the left, but I'm like, there's people like I work with, people I know that are supporters of them. I listen to them, and it's like, okay, I agree with this a little bit, but
Right.
not all of it. Like, let's have an open discussion and not have this echo chamber bearing yourself in. But I mean, it happens within their own parties too. I mean, you look at like the Conservative Party. There's so many. There's your hard social conservatives, your hard fiscal conservatives, and you have like the sprinkling of the libertarians that are still left in the Conservative Party, and they're always infighting about something.
Yeah. You mean there's still libertarians left in there? I think that Pierre Poilievre seems a bit libertarian at times. He seems, but I'm not.
Except for his UN agenda crap, but yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I guess I would say he's more. No, actually, tell you the truth, he's just really good fiscal hawk conservative. I think that's because it's mostly his economic stuff that I definitely I support and think he's. But yeah, I think he'd be just basically a very very good conservative fiscal hawk.
I think it's hard too to be like what you and like people that are like kind of away from like the real heavy political party stuff. Like you have your values in it, whether it aligns with, some stuff you align with the People's Party, other stuff that aligns with the Libertarian Party.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard to be a pure, like I say, a pure libertarian in a political party, because it's like,
oh yeah,
half the stuff it's like you lean left on, half the stuff you lean right on. It's like, so where do you go on certain issues with certain people? Unless you're like Ron Paul and just say whatever you want to say.
Yeah. Well, that is true. And we libertarians definitely recognize, which is why it does seem quite isolating, and we do feel somewhat alone at times. Is because it's like we don't have a particular tribe per se, right? And because we're so individualistic, I've used that terminology and others have as well. It's like trying to corral or wrangle up cats, right? It's like we're just staunchly independent. But that's the beautiful thing actually about libertarians and how they can be leaders of example, and how you can set up any kind of structure or system where, like I say, I would imagine in lots of things that other libertarians do that maybe I don't necessarily agree with, right? But like I say, as long as they're not causing harm to someone, using violence or force, coercion, or theft towards other people, respect and self-ownership and property rights, like you do your thing. You do, like that's the area, like I say, they're having that live, let live mentality, but at the same time, having those very fundamental principles, because that's what actually separates libertarians from the people that would typically like identify as anarchists per se. They want to destroy the current system and paradigm, and I'm kind of supportive of that to a degree, but then I recognize, but what do they have on offer? As a
you have to have something of something better to replace it.
Yeah. That's like saying, okay, you have two parents that are like authoritarian and they're raising a 6-year-old and they're doing it the wrong way. The mother's too smothering, too restrictive, too confining, doesn't let the kid do anything, where there's a father, he's too abusive or whatever. It's like, you don't say, okay, mother and father, we're going to take the kids away from the mother and father and just leave them to live on their own. Well, that's not going to fucking work out too well, is it? Right? That kid's going to need some guidance, going to need somebody to give him some principles or so. No, exactly. Which is why, as a libertarian, philosophically, I don't believe in the state at all. I don't believe we need rulers. I think that's something that humanity will eventually move past. But that, once again, that's just something that I realize that's a goal to strive for, but I'm not foolish or naive enough to think that's going to happen anytime soon. But what I do want is, yes, let's, like I say, offer alternatives. And I say this in so many ways now. Just like I was saying, was it yesterday or the day before? Tesla, people said historically, there's no way without government funding and or government institutions, you'd never be able to get to space. And well, like I say, it's happening. Even telecommunication infrastructure, Elon Musk, Starlink, once again. Just one person in one corporation can once again show all these disruptive ways. Bitcoin, Nagasaki or whatever the guy, or not Nagasaki, but Yokohama, whatever the hell that guy's name is that invented Bitcoin. Once again, come up with a way to offer some kind of alternative currency that you can use to counteract, the fiat currencies that are existing. Another person, the first guy that invented, hey, wait a minute, this blockchain, that's a beautiful thing to use as an underlying platform for smart contracts. right? So like I say, there's all kinds of options out there. And like I say, as a libertarian, I'm all about evolution, not revolution. And the way we do this is not by destroying the old systems or going through protracted revolutions or conflicts, is we create exactly what we promote and watch the people. As long as government stops, as long as the big authoritarians stop us from offering alternative solutions, then we will, people will continually be innovative and creative and offer those solutions. And then the people just have to gravitate to it. Just like if a grocery store opens up in your local community that's got a lot better produce, the fruit's riper, they just happen to, the apples are redder, and you decide, hey, I'm going to go over there instead. Nobody had to force you to do it. You chose to do it voluntarily because somebody offered a better product at a better price point with higher quality. That to me is, like I say, that's where, never mind about the political realm and trying to just wait till we vote every 3 or 4 or 5 years, right? No, let's create the infrastructure or these institutions or organizations or whatever the hell you want to set up to offer the people an option. Same with private healthcare. If you want, I'm not saying to get rid of public health care entirely or defund
the
entirely.
Option of both.
Yeah, but add the option. And like, I think we might have even talked about this before. The beautiful thing about having a private option is now you have 2 lines. So rather than a line that's 2 miles long, well, now the public sector, those who want to use the public sector, now the line is much smaller because a lot of people that have the means at their disposal to go to a private option, now not only have they benefit themselves by having the private option where they can go to, they've made the line much shorter for the people that are using the public option. So everybody wins under that scenario, right?
No, I agree. That's what we touched on that a little bit on the first time I was on the channel. That I don't have an issue with universal health care, but don't force me to have it. Like, give me an option of where I can go elsewhere if I want to.
Exactly. I guess the last thing we probably should tie up, because we're 1:33, so probably tie this up before we're 2 hours. 2 hours is usually what I don't like to go over 2 hours much on these. But anyways, that is the last one. Was we were going to talk about another form of collective punishment, which is the gun ban, right? And I'm definitely against that. But you want to just take the lead on that one, Mitchell? Or
yeah, I mean, it goes back to what we've been talking about all day, because like one guy who decides to go on a rampage here in Nova Scotia, and all of a sudden the next day, the Liberal government's, we need to ban guns. It's not the guns. If I had I don't know any guns myself, but if I had a handgun sitting here on my coffee table and it just sits there, it's not going to. The person behind it is the trigger behind it. The gun is not dangerous. It's the person that's using the gun. And it's actually furthermore proven you look at Switzerland, they have the lowest gun crime in the world, because when you graduate, I think it's high school or university, they train you how to use a gun.
Yep. Everyone.
And if you look at the majority of the United States, and everyone's like, the United States is gun crazy. Mm-hmm. If you look at the states that have where the Second Amendment is truly respected, which I've said before that it should be in Canada, we should have the right to bear arms if we're mentally stable and we don't have a criminal record or anything like that, if we're good upholding citizens. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a reason why if you go to Texas or Oklahoma, some old lady or an elderly lady can be carrying a 9mm in her purse, but if you go to Chicago or Massachusetts or these states that you're not allowed to carry, well, she might have pepper spray. What are you more deterrent of, a gun or pepper spray? Like, you can't, because one action of one person, like especially in Canada right now with that one guy, like, we've never had we had that mass shooting in Quebec in the 80s, I believe, at that school.
Oh, the Polytechnique or whatever.
Yeah. But predominantly, like, why are you punishing law-abiding citizens for the mistake of one person? And there's some of them are hunting rifles, and they had one there, the list they made, one was a pellet gun.
Yeah.
Do your research. A pellet gun, it could be dangerous if you close range, you shot someone in the head with it. But you know what I mean? Don't ban and kill the industry. It's 3 million jobs you're now affecting, and the revenue it creates. I'm not saying money is the ultimate factor, but you're costing people their jobs and their livelihood because of one person's mistake who had a mental breakdown. And then they asked the question, was it COVID related? Come on, get away from the COVID. The guy was had a mental breakdown, and it calculated he made a mistake. Obviously, I'm not justifying what he did. It was a horrible thing what he did, and if he didn't, he shouldn't have been in jail. He should have. But you can't punish a whole society or that community because of one person's actions.
Yeah. Well, I would even add on top of that the insane part, especially, I guess that's one of the things where I've always counted myself very fortunate that I've lived in both types of jurisdictions, like big urban centers and very, very small towns in rural New Brunswick and Canada. And if you're a rural person, when you're hearing these liberals and stuff, especially when you're talking about, like, if you know, like, and you're from the East Coast, like you know how many of these small little communities are, at best, the cops are maybe a half hour away from a lot of places if
you're
you
lucky.
need, right? And that's exactly, and that's, well, I know where we are. They've removed a couple of the local ones, RCMP detachments, and they all just function out of one for 3 different communities now. Each community prior used to have their own RCMP detachment. Now 3 communities have been basically amalgamated in one. And it's not like they have double the amount of police officers. There's only I think 3 or 4 actual cruisers. How many cops there are? Probably a couple more than that. But the actual cars there's 3 cruisers and I believe 1 SUV, but has to cover 3 different jurisdictions. So yes, if there's a threat to your life or your property or anything immediate, no fucking police is going to be able to save your ass anyways. And anyone that believes that stuff is like, what kind of a wishful thinking? Matter of fact, the only thing that those people that were going through that shit that night when that madman was on his rampage had any hopes to save themselves was the ability to defend themselves from someone else. And like I say, now the situation, even if they actually, one thing I will admit, even if the person was armed and had the ability to protect himself, because he did dress as a police officer, that person may very well have died regardless, because they wouldn't have been ready to actively engage in a shooting with someone that they believe is a cop. They obviously were, their guard was let down automatically and distinctly because they thought that was an actual police officer that might have been just coming to ask them a question or whatever the hell reason or what it is. But like I say, once it was known, so after the first couple of people, well, it was his girlfriend, I guess, but after the first couple of people, right, if an actual alert had went out, that was a failure of somebody inside. I'm not going to blame everybody, but somebody failed to put out an alert, which kind of does irk me because, like I say, these alerts, they go out on a regular basis for stuff that I think is kind of weird. Now, when I was living in Ontario, not so much on the East Coast, man, we would get those goddamn alerts, and a lot of times it'd be, never mind, the kid was found. It was just the dad that, took him because mom said he couldn't have them that day, and whatever, right? And it was resolved quickly thereafter. But once again, they still would use it. Now, some people would complain about the fact that even myself, like, really, you don't need to use it for everything. But if we're going to have an emergency alert system, when a fucking madman with a police car is on a rampage, if I can think of one reason that would probably be a good excuse to use that system, no matter what time of the day or night it is, that would have probably been a good. And once again, if the people in that jurisdiction or that community or those communities knew that there's an active shooter on the loose, he's dressed as a police in a police uniform, then first of all, they would want to find a way to shelter in place. I don't think anyone would actually be out pursuing, but who knows, right? Now, and I'm not even advocating for vigilante justice to go out and actively pursue this guy. I would think, but if someone shows up your door and they don't want to identify and you're inside, or they come into your household without your permission, then that's not how a typical police. So then, defend yourself and your family from anyone that would do such. But to disarm the rural people, well, now they're not just worried. It's not just the effect that it would have had that night as that shooter went on his rampage, but now even the local petty criminals. Now, there's a lot of criminals that keep themselves at bay, especially in rural communities, by the sheer fact that they don't know, because you are allowed to own guns. And a lot of people in rural jurisdictions do own guns as a means to whether hunt or protect themselves or anything, right? Once you've removed all that, and basically if Trudeau gets his thing and he gets rid of the gun ban on all these weapons and institutes like even a handgun ban, well, then now the criminals will be emboldened, like, oh, now the citizens are even less armed, and now I can go on even bigger criminal sprees because now there's a potential where I can benefit because the government has now, basically created a whole lot of helpless victims. Like that, like I say, it's not like the police are going to be able to sit there at your doorstep all day, every day. So it just seems like a bad idea all the way around as far as I'm concerned.
No, I agree with you. It's like there was I think it was like in Northwest Texas last year, the year before, that guy that went in and shot up the church. Like, oh, we need to ban guns. But yet there was a guy in the church that shot the guy, stopping him from killing the other 15 people. And like, if that gun wasn't there, more people are going to die.
Yeah.
Like there's got to be like some sort of, I don't get the logic of banning guns, and it, not to make it political, but it seems to be a heavy left idea of banning all
Yep.
guns.
Yeah, it is.
Or I should say left. I should say an authoritarian, because there are people on the right that are authoritarian that don't want people to have guns either. But
that's true, and actually that's the problem with the especially with the right, is they want to defend the gun rights or advocates, for especially for hunters or sports shooters and stuff. But when they advocate for disarmament, it's like, are you looking to disarm the police as well? No, of course not, right? Because you want some people in society to be able to protect themselves from the criminals, right? Well, that's what the rest of Canadians want as well, right? You recognize the reason why you want police officers to be armed, because you recognize there are bad people out there in society that don't follow laws, rules, or regulations that are an active threat to a lot of potential people, right? Well, that's what the citizens recognize well, which is why a lot of people want to have access to a means to defend themselves. It's not that Canada is filled with a bunch of sociopaths that just
No.
want to have guns for the sake of gun, because we're just such a gun crazy culture in this country.
And the United States is not like that either. They just have linear gun laws. I mean, they have, like
you were saying, it's actually those big urban centers that have wicked fucking restrictions on guns. That's where all the crime takes place. Chicago, right?
Whether the stat was true or not, but I don't know. It said if you took Chicago, New Orleans, Atlanta, Boston, and I forget what other city it was, the United States would go from like third in gun crime in the world to like 87th.
Yeah.
I don't get the whole like you made the argument too about if you're in a rural area, it takes half an hour to an hour for a cop to get to your house. So someone's breaking into your house, God forbid, and they're threatening to kill your whole family. Oh, sorry, give me a minute. I got to call 911. In the meantime, your kids could be dead, your wife could be dead, girlfriend could be dead, you could be dead, and then like at that point, if I think, shoot them, like kill them. Your life's in danger. It shouldn't be murder, because actually in Canada, if you shoot someone in your house and you kill them, you actually go to jail for murder.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense. So they can kill you, and then I don't get the whole logic behind the gun laws in Canada. I'm not saying we don't need to go around carrying 45 caliber handguns on our hip, but we should have the right to.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, because if you at least have the right, once again, that's one of those things. And to me, as a man, that, I'm pretty, as far as myself, I don't really feel like I need a gun. I don't need it to protect myself everywhere I go. I'm not fearful. But yeah, when I think about women or people in vulnerable situations or circumstances, yes, even if they don't necessarily have one, if it's something that's deemed legal, and I've said this many times too, you don't know if that lady's got a 38 snub stuck in her purse that night when she's walking home alone. And if you actually believe that, she might, a lot less chance that you'll try to inflict any harm on that woman, right? That to me, it's the message that you send to the criminals among us. That's really what matters most, because this pretense that if you strip those rights or remove the ability to own guns, that somehow they all cease to exist. When does that ever happen? Like, there's already 300+ million guns in the US, and there's millions of them in Canada. So no matter what anyone writes on a piece of paper or parchment or as an act of legislation, they're not going anywhere. Criminals aren't going to be the ones that are going to hand in their guns, right? The ones that's going to walk up
bury them in the backyard in a garbage bin and use them later.
The only one that's going to show up and actively hand in their own personal firearms is a really, really honest, law-abiding citizen. It's like, oh, sorry, Mr. Government, you told me I'm not allowed to have this, so here. But I mean, is that the person you need to take the gun away from? I fucking highly doubt it. Whereas the criminal that has ill intents, you tell him he's going to hand his gun in. Yeah, he's not going to do it. Not going to do it. No matter how much you can write that 1,000 times, like Bart Simpson on a fucking chalkboard.
It ain't going to change anything.
Still not going to change a damn thing. But I like the example you brought up at the very first part of this, which was Switzerland, because people are so used to and accustomed to here in the U.S. And because in Canada, we're their northern neighbor, the U.S. is the jurisdiction that we always seem to refer to, especially when you're talking about gun culture or gun rights. But 100%, if people are like, oh, but they're just, so even if they got the negative and the wrong stereotype of gun culture in the U.S., because like you pointed out, it's not a one size fits all. It's an inner city gang related type of issue, not an American gun culture issue. But using the Switzerland example is beautiful, and for so many reasons, because yes, the Swiss people are known for their independence. I mean, like even during World Wars, right? They were the only
country. They stayed neutral.
Yeah, they were the only country that stayed neutral. And the reason why they felt emboldened to do so without fear of invasion, right? Because Europe was under invasion, whether it's the Nazi regime, there was all kind of opportunity for whether it's the Nazis or the communists to take over large sections of Europe. The reason why Switzerland has been Switzerland, remains Switzerland, and will stay Switzerland is because, like you alluded to earlier, is they train all their adults. I think it's men and women both, right? So that you have active training and know-how in terms of military tactics and use of a weapon, which means any foreign threat, well, just like with the U.S., there's a blade of grass, like the Japanese emperor, there's a gun behind every blade of grass. Well, in Switzerland, there's pretty much a gun behind every blade of grass there, and those people are trained and willing to use it against anyone that tries to impose their authoritarian means or ways on them. So that's a beautiful example, because Switzerland at least is one of those countries that people don't have that negative connotation in Canada, right? Because Canadians, especially the people that don't understand America properly, they just listen to like CBC rhetoric, right? And think that somehow the U.S. is now the most oppressive country on the planet. It's like, really though? Actually, I was replying to a comment earlier today. Sorry, I'll let you go. I just wanted to just say this. I was replying to a comment, and I think it was a lady that I was having an exchange with, and she was like, I referenced some little ad someone had put out where they want Canada to come invade us. And it's like, listen, I'm not with this pretense that Canada, we're all just these great people and the Americans are just the worst, right? Like, tell you the truth, as much as I'm somewhat of a proud Canadian, like, I was like, really? Well, okay, I tell you what, you switch place then. I'll go down to Texas. You come up here. I'll even give you my house. You give me yours and we'll do a spot, because I'm not too fearful of the U.S. and the way the media portrays it. And I actually kind of, not scary, but it saddens me to think that Canada and the media class and the political class are trying to play up as if, the U.S. is now what? Like, what the hell? It's the only country that was basically founded on genuine ideas, right? It was
they kicked the British out and made their own laws and government.
Exactly. Like, you can't say that U.S. is all British or all, because it is actually, it's diverse in terms of the people that comprise its culture, but the ideas are what unified the nation. And to me, that's actually the kind of thing I want to unify behind, not just because the people in my community or my jurisdiction just happen to share the same gene pool. Because there's a lot of people who share my gene pool are bad people, right? So anyway, sorry.
Diversity, this whole, and it's like off the gun, but the whole diversity is like, Trudeau's always, we need more diversity. We need a diversity. No, we can have diversity of opinion on things, but unity is a country's strength. If you don't have core values in a country, you don't have a country. You have a horrible situation. Now, the gun banning, historically, I mean, if you look at it, I'm not saying the Trudeau leftists or Mao, Stalin, or Hitler, but you look what happens when the government takes the guns away from everyone. Mao took the guns, and how many people got killed? 25 million. Stalin took the gun. I mean, the guns are not. I mean, I'm not saying you have to go, have a rebellion and turn over the government by firearms, but that's why the Second Amendment is there, for a tyrannical government, and they can protect themselves.
Yep.
And that's like when you mentioned about the blade of grass. It's funny that was right after Pearl Harbor, because they won. I think there's two. It was Yamamoto and Nagata were the two admirals in the Japanese Navy. They were aircraft carrier commanders. And they were like, the other guys were like, we need to invade mainland United States. And they were like, we can't invade the mainland United States. Like, they could go as far as, like, San Diego base was just being built. The naval base. Like, they could go as far as almost Chicago, I believe, before there'd be a U.S. naval base. And they're like, you can't invade the mainland United States. There's a blade of grass a gun behind every blade of grass.
Yeah.
And it's not the NRA. Like, if you look at what I'm not sure how many people are in the NRA, but I do not believe, unless the stat was wrong, there is not one single member ever in the NRA that ever discharged a weapon out of malice intent. It was only self-protection.
Well, I'm not sure on the statistics on that either, whether there was zero or even if it was a very small, I mean, it'd
be less than 1%.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that definitely shows you that, yes, the kind of people, just like in Canada. And I mean, like I say, not that I know everybody in this country or every gun owner in the U.S., but I do trust that most people, like I say, I trust that most people are going to be reasonable. And especially And one thing I noticed in the rural areas I grew up in is a lot of these people, light in terms of education or world knowledge, right? So, there is kind of stereotypes that do stick in certain particular rural type areas. But if there's one thing I will tell you is when it comes to gun culture and how to properly store, to use and to carry them, even kids that come from really, really, like I say, people on the very low end of the socioeconomic scale and not highly educated by any stretch of the imagination are very, very knowledgeable in terms of making sure they're safe. That's because if you're raised in an environment where guns are a normal, then you learn very early on. That's something I was privy to as a kid. You learn very early on the fundamental importance, because it is a weapon that can kill you, right? And like we've heard how many times, the little kid that gets a hold of his dad's gun and it's loaded and kills his sister. So we've all heard those goddamn tragic stories. So most people who are into guns recognize that, yes, they can have they're potentially dangerous weapons. So they take a lot of proactive actions to make sure that they, like I say, they're safe with them. And that, like I say, those are the people that I trust wholeheartedly with a weapon, because these are people that know instinctively the power of that weapon and have a lot of respect for it. It's the people that aren't accustomed to being around guns or gun culture are the people that I'm a little fearful, because it's like a shiny new toy, right? It's like, oh, so I definitely want people to be properly trained. Like, I don't care if you live in the suburbs, a big urban center, or the rural. I want people, yes, to be properly trained. But once again, it doesn't have to be mandated by government. But you want people, like I say, people in your community, your family.
Private organizations could start up and train people how to use them.
Yeah. Or your dad or your uncle. Like there's all kinds of people out there that, like I say, can pass on that knowledge. Actually, most of history, that's how we've adapted some of the things that people have learned in the past, learned some hard mistakes, and we pass on that knowledge to each generation, right? And that's kind of what we do. But anyways,
there are small organizations. I don't know if they're in New Brunswick. They're here in Nova Scotia in the rural areas. It's like teaching kids how to fish and hunt. And it's like volunteers go out and they work with like 8 to 10 kids at a time, and they teach them how to fish and hunt and how gun safety is important. So they're not giving them like a semi-automatic rifle. They're giving them they started with like 22 caliber handguns type thing, and there's someone there with them at all times teaching them trigger safety and gun safety. But banning guns isn't going to solve the problem. I mean, there's no guns allowed in Mexico. There's no guns allowed in Venezuela, and they have the highest gun crime. If you ban guns, you're going to increase not violent crime with other weapons. Like if someone gets in a car and they're drunk and they kill someone, well, that car becomes a weapon. Are you going to stop people from driving cars now?
Exactly.
Can you stop selling baseball bats in stores because someone in a rural area beat someone to death? It's not the baseball bat that did the damage, but they're still allowed.
Once again, it all just keeps coming back to the same thing: is we have to end the very concept of collective punishment. If that is just one thing that we can move beyond as Western societies, as our next, step forward in terms of respect and individual liberty, is get way beyond like mandatory minimum sentences or any kind of collective punishment where you're not respecting the individuals based on the particulars or the facts of the case. Because that is something, to me, that's not even, tell you the truth, it's not even really doing much in terms of advancing the West, because actually this is something that was very well understood. Actually, it's actually just regaining ground that's been lost, because actually historically the West, because we do understand the fundamental aspects of proper liberty and justice under post-Enlightenment era values, where it's all about the individual, right? Is actually, we're not even, we've actually ceded a substantial amount of ground over the course of the 20th century. So I would at the very least hope that we can get us back. So we've at least gained that ground back, because even the people that are fearful of people who cause violence or commit acts of violence or cause damage to property or persons, is at the very least, you want the judges to have the discretion to be able to deal with the particular incident or individual based on the actual facts of the case. And that can help people that are all about more law and order. And it can also help people that are more compassionate because once again, maybe there are some incidents where the judges are too lenient because these people are actual genuine criminals, and the judges are maybe a little bit too politically active and allowing them too much leniency, right? If you had actual judges' discretion, then maybe you could get more increased penalties as a means to deter some of these violent crimes. Whereas in other multiple scenarios or situations, you could have a de-escalation in the kind of punitive measurements or punishments that are doled out for people that really haven't committed anything that would properly be deemed an actual crime in the first place. So yes, just getting rid of collective punishment or collective guilt would go a substantial, or it would do a substantial amount of help to us respecting each other as individuals in society. And I think I just can't help but imagine that if you properly articulate this message, that people from both the left or right would be able to agree to this stuff. I just can't imagine, but we just don't have the right leaders out there that are talking, or the ones that actually have the main stage or the big microphones. They're not saying the kind of things that you or I are saying. So that's actually what needs to take place is, get these fucking dipshits that want to keep dividing us out of the spotlight and pivot and put that on people who want to bring us together.
Yeah, with the thing about the jail system or the crime punishment system, I think we need to do more. Like, some people can be rehabilitated. Some people don't believe you can. But I mean, some of these people that go to jail for a longer time, it's like, why are they still in jail? Like, rehabilitate them if they're able to be rehabilitated and make them a valuable part of society again. Like, I mean, obviously, if you're a serial killer or you're a pedophile, no, you stay in jail, you rot there, and that's where you stay.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, these people that have like a break and enter a couple times. Okay, they broke what? Like, can they not be rehabilitated? Was it poor upbringing? Do they not have good role models? Because usually in economics, they come from, like, majority of people in jails come from economically deprived neighborhoods. Yeah, because they don't have the opportunity. So why not, rehabilitate them? And the United States does a little better job than we do, because there's a lot of, they'll do online courses with universities and they don't have to pay for it. I mean, it is paid by the taxpayer, but I mean, if I wouldn't mind paying taxes for that, if you rehabilitate someone to become a good citizen, they can contribute to the economy. Yeah, to leave them in jail, and like the amount of money we pay to keep people in jail in this country, some of the things that they shouldn't be in jail for as long as they are for, it's absurd.
Yeah. Well, see, that's a perfect example. To me, I'm just getting a visualization.
And bring back the death penalty.
Yeah. Well, I'm getting a visualization of a right-wing figurehead that's a big, important person, and then a lefty, right? And I think about cancel culture and like I say, these what you're saying, like where they're not showing any redemption and locked and put behind bars for such extensive period of times. That's basically both sides of the same coin, where they're cancel cultures. Like, there's got to be a way, just like in the online realm, you can't just cancel people entirely and just pretend that they no longer exist. Just like you can't just throw people behind in a cage and pretend they no longer exist, right? You can't treat people in this way. But that, to me, that's, like I say, like, get the right wingers and the left wingers out here and say, okay, you're both practicing a particular form of cancel culture, or you sport it in some way. I say there's a lot of nuance in here. So let's find a way, rather than just going on the cancel culture bullshit where you determine that someone is either a bad person, and then you just, based on whatever incident or isolated timestamp out of their life, and that's just going to stick with them for all of eternity, right? Because that's another thing. Think about it. If you cause a person where they're like, you've literally canceled them entirely, that places people in even worse, desperate situations where that might be a reason to escalate and cause them to cause even more violence or harm, because they realize that, well, basically, you've written me off as a human being, right? Yeah. And I think that's terrible. Now, it should be, like you were saying, it should be reserved for some people who are those habitual, and there are a very tiny number of people in every society who are those habitual criminals who just seem to be, no matter what the fuck you do, you can't seem to ever get through these people. But like I say, that is usually a very, very, very tiny representation. Whereas most people, like you say, give them the opportunity to rehabilitate and to become active members of society once again. And trust me, a lot of times, a lot of the people that you seem that were troubled people who had issues, a lot of those issues will get resolved. You just have to give them the opportunity to do so.
I can't remember the guy's name. There was a guy in California when the big push for crack cocaine was in the 70s and 80s. That's what he did. He sold a lot of crack and a lot of cocaine. He went to jail for a long time. I can't remember his name. I'm going to have to send you the name later. Okay. He went into prison and he got reformed, and he owns his own business now and has turned his whole life around. And he goes back in these poor neighborhoods or disenfranchised neighborhoods and helps people that have had similar issues to him. Like if they're drug dealers, stuff, he tries to help them, and so they don't end up in the same system that he ended up in for 20 years.
Wow.
If you don't have good leadership, or good role models, you're not really destined for success in life, usually.
It's true. It's true. But hey, we're trying our best to be voices of reason here, Mitchell. And I'm very glad that you actually joined me today for this conversation. Because like I say, it is something that's profoundly important. And I hope some people get to watch this. And like I say, anyone, those of you who are in the stream now or anyone that watches this subsequent, put your comment and your opinion on these things down below. And like I say, get involved in the conversation, and not just here on this video, but yeah, talk about this stuff with other members in your community, in your society, because this is, like I say, these are some of those uncomfortable discussions that need to take place. And a lot of people are running to their political perspective corners or tribes and kind of doubling down on their rigid ideology. And like I say, I'm seeing that divisiveness it's opening up in more and more cracks in society today. And I want to go the other way. I want to start healing some of those cracks. But the only way that can take place is, like I say, we have to start getting out of our comfort zones where we're just kind of functioning echo chambers and be willing to actively engage with people we actually disagree with. And I mean, me and Mitchell, we have some minor disagreements, although because I see that he's a good, decent person. To me, even like I say, whether you come from the left or right, if I recognize that you're a decent person and you have good intentions, we can disagree with a lot of things. I don't care. Like I say, we'll hammer out this stuff because reasonable people, that's what reasonable people do, right? They hammer out these things and they come to some resolution that's going to be amicable and acceptable by both parties or all parties involved.
Well, that's like someone messaged me privately. I'm not going to mention names. A couple people are like, "You're going to go back on his channel today? He questioned Maxime," and I'm like, "What?" Like, and he's like, "Well, he's saying he's not going to get involved politically anymore. Like, do a lot of political party stuff, right? You're more based on the values and principles." But I'm like, but his goal and my goal are almost the same.
Yeah,
we're just taking different vessels. Like, you're doing it from a very an apolitical culture perspective, where I'm trying to do it from like a political party perspective as well, too, right? So we're both on the same trajectory. We're just going different roads.
Yeah. And that's fine. That's the thing. That's the beautiful thing about it. I don't expect. That's the thing as a libertarian. I would never want Mitchell, nor would I want to live in a country of 37 million Bennetts. Like, what a fucking boring place that would be.
If there was 37 million of me, we'd all be behind the scenes, barely talking, and I'd be strategizing for everyone else to do things.
No, but I love the fact that we can have these kind of discussions and even disagree with each other. But like I say, this is what I call leading by example. This is two people that might not necessarily agree fundamentally on everything. And I definitely, like, if we delve into the whole statism thing, I'm pretty sure we have some disagreements. But like I say, we all at least recognize that we have the right kind of thought process and intentions and goals at the end of the day. Yes, we're going to travel different paths, but like I say, that's fine. Matter of fact, a multi-pronged approach, once again, is much better. If we're all marching in unison, one behind each other, and I march off the cliff, well, guess what? You're all fucking coming with me, right? Because you don't get to see the cliff until you're already up on it. Now, I'm glad we've got lots of different visuals and cues from many different angles and perspectives. That's great. That's like I say. And I'm glad that because politics isn't going anywhere. As much as I'm not a fan of it, it's not going anywhere. And politics is definitely going to play a role in changing this country. But it's going to be in combination and conjunction with cultural drivers and people and personalities like myself. That's how it works, folks. That's literally how it works.
We're in a cultural and information war, if you will. And if it's strategy, like you said, like you're more apolitical. I mean, I know, like, you still talk a lot about like the Libertarian Party and then the good principles of the People's Party, but you're not hard into like one side of it. And that's what, and like, I'm a member of the party, I'm in an important role, but it's like, I can also see like other aspects. And that's what I like about this party, where if I was to look at Conservative Party, man, if I spoke out a line about anything, my membership's revoked and see you later. And that's, most parties are like that. With the People's Party, you really have to do something outrageous. Like, you have to be blatantly racist or a bigot to get kicked out. Freedom of speech is important.
Well, like I've said, I was a founding member. I still have quite a few people from the PBC that we still talk with each other and stuff. And I have a lot of respect for some of them, for sure. And to me, all I really do at the end of the day, and yeah, sometimes I might come across harsh, but like Mitchell and anyone else that's ever talked with me, just engage in a conversation. You realize, I a lot of times I'll say stuff in a way just to garner attention, because basically that's what you got to do these days, right? Hello. But at the end of the day, like I say, there's some good peeps that are part of the PPC, and I just want to, like I say, just like I hold myself to account and try to keep myself on the straight and narrow, I'm just basically trying to do the same thing with the fine folks of the PPC. Some, I definitely have a massive disagreements with. A lot, we have a tremendous amount in common, but at the end of the day, we're all living in the same country. I would never seek to cancel out the PPC. I haven't ripped up my membership. I haven't, the thing we got there for the founding member certificate. I didn't. Well, that'd be a digital ripping up online, right? But and like I say, I'm still actively involved with talking with the fine folks at the PPC. Not necessarily at the top, but once again, I don't care about necessarily a couple of the figureheads at the top. They can do their thing, but that can change all the time. It's the ideas, right? It's the ideas. And that's what me and Mitchell are discussing, is the ideas. And anyone else that's PPC supporters, candidates, or members, once again, just test me out, test the water sometime. If you want to engage in a conversation with me, you'll realize that don't go by, a little snippet that you've seen in a tweet, right? Talk to me, because I guarantee you'll realize that, maybe he's not as bad. Maybe he's not the devil I thought he was, right?
Yeah.
But anyways, thanks again, Mitch. I really appreciate it. But it's 2 hours and 7 minutes, and I don't want to keep you too awfully long today. 2 hours is plenty good anyways. And I think we definitely did a good job of hammering out a lot of the points that I wanted to cover, and you definitely covered them too. I actually enjoy our conversation. They flow fairly well.
So that was very good today.
Yeah. So thanks for everyone else that joined up to the stream. And like I say, Mitchell, anytime you come up with anything else, maybe something else that's popped up in the news and you want to cover it, just reach out to me and we can set something up at any time, buddy.
Absolutely. You have a good day.
Oh, but actually, before I let you go, is there anything you want me or you want to mention to anyone else? Do you have any websites or any events or anything that you want to promote or anything at all? Just
you still have most of my social media links in your messaging. I think
I'll do. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
And I have a new page for anyone that, if you're curious about the PPC or you are a member, it's my provincial coordinator page for Nova Scotia and PEI. It's actually the same as my Twitter handle. So if you go on Facebook and just use the @ sign and then capital M, capital F, OLEY, and then capital PPC, you'll get that page as well. I just started it about 3 weeks ago, and then I had some issues with it. They wouldn't let me advertise, but it's going to be started advertising here soon.
All right. Well, when you're done that, Mitchell, just in a reply in the message on Facebook, just send me that link too. But I have all the other ones. What I'll do is I'll go back to my other video conversation we had. I'll just copy and link those ones, and I'll put them in this one as well.
Thank you very much.
Not a problem, man. Like I said, we'll talk to you again soon. And thanks for everyone that showed up the stream. And by the way, it's Friday, so everyone have yourself a great weekend.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
And I love liberty.